Welcome to episode 14 of D1 All Stars. This is Alder Joe Maldonado. I am here today with a special guest, Dr. Wendy Molaska. She's going to be talking to us about all things under the sun, but I just got to know her earlier this year, and I'm really excited to dig deep into her practice and her structure on medicine. It was a really exciting conversation we had back in the beginning of this year, and I'm excited to continue that. So welcome, Dr. Molaska.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. I love talking about all things medicine and everything else. And I was, really pleased when you stopped by our door and introduced yourself as our new Alder. And then, we just continued talking from there.
Absolutely. Now, the fun part about this redistricting thing that we do every 10 years is I got a whole new set of constituents, and actually your area was where I started knocking doors first because I wanted to get to know new folks, and you ended up writing back to me. I was so excited to see that, one, like, folks were really like plugged in and paying attention, and then two, we just got into a whole really interesting conversation, which we'll get into. So the way that I structure this is first I start, asking folks about who they are. So tell me your superhero origin story.
Ooh, do I need to strike a superhero pose when I do it?
Absolutely, that's mandatory.
Okay. So my superhero story, I started as a very sick kid who was in and out of the hospital a lot. And so I decided back when I was about 5 years old that I was going to be a doctor. And I never wavered from that course. So I grew up in Wausau, Wisconsin, and then went to undergrad and medical school in Madison and got my medical degree. Went to family practice residency because I decided family medicine was the place I wanted to be because I got to do everything. It's what I call womb to tomb medicine. I get to deliver babies and do everything in between, all the way up to hospice and end of life care. So it really appealed to me that I get to know families and patients over time. So I did my family practice residency in North Minneapolis before joining the National Health Service Corps, and was placed out in rural Colorado doing family medicine. A couple of the things that have always interested me. So North Minneapolis was a very underserved area. The rural Colorado area was underserved area. So I've always had this interest in kind of underserved healthcare for those people who are uninsured, underinsured, otherwise unable to access healthcare. And so this has kind of been the driving force behind my entire career. I eventually came back to Wisconsin. Worked out in Platteville, another rural area here in Wisconsin, for many years before I met a guy, got married, and had a kid. And when you have a kid, you can't really split time between Madison and Platteville. So we moved to Madison, easier for my husband to keep his job here and me to get a new job. So I took a job in Madison for a while. And we had a couple of kids, and I found myself in burning out in medicine, which was just tragic to me. Partially because this is the only thing I've ever imagined myself doing, is being a physician. And now I didn't feel like I was getting to be the physician I wanted to be. There's all this pressure from insurance and administrators and prior authorizations and formularies and all this kind of stuff, where it felt like there were so many people in between myself and what I was doing, that I wasn't actually having that doctor-patient relationship. I'd get, 15 minutes with patients, and then my patients were telling me, "Hey, doc, it takes 3 months to get an appointment with you," or "I got to see whoever's available." And that's just not good medicine either, because, like I said, I want to get to know my patients and be able to, serve them when they need it. The other interesting thing is, as I mentioned, I was a really sick kid. And so I was born with something called Marfan syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. And one of the main problems is a weakened aorta, the main artery that comes off the heart. So in 2006, I had open heart surgery to replace my aorta. And after the surgery, I can read through all of the bills and the coding and stuff. And there were several mistakes in there that I ended up fighting with insurance for a year to get cleared up. And it started to, come to me that I'm like, I'm able to do this because I can read through these with a fine-tooth comb and know what I'm reading. and during this year, I've been threatened to be sent to collections and everything else. And I'm like, no, because this is incorrect and I'm going to fight this. But how does a layperson do this who doesn't have that coding experience and that background and the medical knowledge and stuff to read through these? And I'm like, people are just paying bills that are probably not accurate. So there's a couple of different things, both from the physician standpoint and then the patient standpoint, where I was like, our healthcare system is not really functioning the way it actually should be. And so in December 2020, I left my employed position as a physician, and then December of 2020, yes, because then in May of 2021, so just over a year ago, I opened my direct primary care clinic here in Fitchburg. And I think, yep. And so I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but yeah, basically I decided I need a whole new way to provide medical care for people. And that's where I'm at.
Wow. So that's fascinating. I want to start at the beginning though, because, you said being sick, it ultimately led you to do what you want to do. But, having worked in advising with, undergraduates, oftentimes like everybody wants to be a doctor, right? And there's usually sort of a narrowing down, either through rigorous coursework or just through the stress, physically, mentally, emotionally that comes with medical school. To get there. So sort of what kept you in the game, what kept you going through that whole process to be able to get to the point of, becoming a physician?
So I think part of it is, again, just continuing to have that contact. So nobody in my family was necessarily medical. And I think that's also a hard place to come from if you're a student trying to become a physician, is that if you don't have that background of what it is to go through medical school and residency and stuff, I think that can be intimidating for a lot of people. So I didn't have that background, but again, with Marfan syndrome, I'm constantly seeing doctors in and out of hospitals. I've had multiple different complications from this. So I was always, as a patient, part of the system. And I had really good doctors and really bad doctors throughout my younger years. And so one of the ones that my mom remembers from when I was 5 was a surgeon that I had who had no bedside manner. And I'm a little kid and I'm scared and I'm in the hospital and in pain and stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, whatever, this isn't going to hurt. And it hurts. And so I told him, when I grow up, I'm going to take your job. And so I decided
what did he say?
He just ignored me because, whatever. But yeah, I was just set on being a physician, and I did not end up being a surgeon and taking his job. But I think part of it was, just, that real drive to know, hey, I had really good doctors who this is what I want to emulate. And then there are these other physicians out here who I'm like, yeah, we need to replace them. So, and I think there were other programs in place when I was doing this as well. So there was what was called the Medical Scholars Program. So as a graduating high school student, I was valedictorian of my class. I actually applied to the Medical Scholars Program, which gave me conditional admittance to medical school from high school. So when I came down here to Madison, I had to take certain undergrad courses, maintain a certain GPA, but I didn't actually have to then apply to medical school. I was already admitted so long as I met those requirements throughout undergrad. And that was really kind of a nice program because then I already knew I was going to medical school. I didn't have to worry as much, I don't think, about, making sure that my letters of recommendation and my, college courses and everything were, quite as, I just didn't need to do, I feel like, as much stuff as students these days need to do to be able to prove themselves, because there's so many smart students out there. But yeah, you have to, what's going to make you stand out on medical school applications. So
you had lived experience, support, and also the understanding of not, having had other family members go through it. So that's sort of the things that push you through. This is incredibly interesting. I'm looking forward to keeping the train going, but we're going to be back after a break. We're here with Dr. Wendy Molaska. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit about how you got over here to Fitchburg. And we are back. We're here with Dr. Wendy Molaska. We've been talking a little bit about what led her to medicine. And we're going to talk a little bit now about Fitchburg. So how did you get to Fitchburg? I know how you got to the Madison area.
Yep. So yeah, married a guy and had kids, and we moved from Platteville to the Madison area. Biggest thing for me, having lived in rural areas for a long time, I had 2 acres out in Platteville where I had fruit trees and raspberries, and a big garden and everything. And so when we started looking around for someplace to live, I was like, I need space to do my gardening. My friends all laugh at me because I say, therapy for me is weed therapy. And that doesn't mean marijuana. That means pulling weeds out of the garden. so my pulling weeds out of the garden is my therapy. So I needed someplace where I could have a garden and stuff again. So we started looking around the area. And I distinctly remember when we found the house in Fitchburg is that our realtor was trying to open the front door, and the front yard was fine and stuff, but I walked around the house and went out to the back, and I was like, I'm home. It had this beautiful yard, room that I could put in a garden, and it was just like, yep, I'm home. And so, yeah, it was just the perfect place. And at that time too, we were looking at, what are our options for kids for schools. We happened to be in the Verona school district. Really wanted my kids to be bilingual, and I knew Verona offered the TWE program, the two-way immersion program with English and Spanish. So that was also kind of a selling point for being in this area.
What do you grow in the backyard?
So we have apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees, raspberries, blueberries, saskatoons, which are June berries, an asparagus patch. And then in the garden itself are all the typical garden things. So tomatoes and peppers and onions and broccoli and cauliflower and beans and carrots and beets and peas and some strawberries. And I think I'm probably forgetting something.
Oh, I love it. I'm a gardener too, so I got much love for that. I'm gonna have to stop by and steal some fruit from you.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, we give it away to all the neighbors when we overproduce certain things. And it's also just gratifying to see your kids go out and, pull some peas off the vines and just eat them raw and, eat tomatoes like apples and stuff. So, yeah.
So what do you love about Fitchburg?
I love the diversity, honestly. So I actually, during early medical school, I lived in the Allied Drive neighborhood. And then I lived over at, I'm blanking on the name of the apartments, over big white apartments over by where Little John's is going to have the restaurant.
Oh, New Fountains.
Yes, New Fountains. Yeah, a bunch of medical students and I rented an apartment over there. So was already familiar with the area from medical school, and just really like the diversity. There's bike paths, parks for the kids, everything we need from restaurants to grocery stores. And then the big thing for me, honestly, as well, was I was able to set up my clinic here in Fitchburg so that I can, walk and bike to work. There's something to be said for being able to, just walk and bike to work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. How far do you live from your job?
So I live about a mile from my job.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing is, so I'm also president of the Wisconsin Medical Society currently. And so their offices are actually here in Fitchburg as well. So they're off of Seminole Highway over by Barriques and Seminole Pool and stuff. So when I have meetings and other things going on, they're, not even a mile from my house, the other direction from my clinic. So I can walk and bike to both places as I need to.
So your whole life is within a 1 mile radius of where you live, and you get your produce there. You're like living a sustainable dream right now.
Yes. And actually, yes, we also have a CSA, and that's about, 5 blocks from our house. So the kids take the wagon down the street and pick up the CSA from where it gets dropped off and bring the wagon back full of other food. So it's great.
Awesome. Do you have solar panels too?
Not yet.
Okay. That's the next step. So what does Fitchburg need more of?
Oh, I feel like Fitchburg needs better options for mass transit. I've actually heard from some of my patients, that they actually have a hard time getting around Fitchburg, getting to and from Madison. So I think that's one of it. I like the idea that we're getting a teen center and hub. I think being able to provide other options, it would be great for our kids, for the community in general. I wonder more about like a community center as well in terms of for adults and grownups, a place for people to gather. And I feel like a lot of neighborhoods over time are what I call garage door up, garage door down neighborhoods where you don't really know your neighbors in your community as much. And I remember as a kid, the whole neighborhood knew everybody. And so, the parents were over on somebody's porch, talking and, having beers after work, and us kids were running around the whole entire neighborhood and stuff. And so I think, having more of that sense of community, and, more of those neighborhood gathering places, community gathering places, I think would be awesome.
Absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about your practice. I was just fascinated when I talked to you about how you were able to provide the care that you did, at the accessibility that you did. So can you tell me a little bit about like how you got into it and kind of what it means to be able to have that family care?
Yeah. So, like I said, I really wanted to be able to provide care to patients. And what I've realized over the years of also being a patient and getting these bills is the insanity of the prices that we're currently seeing. So over the years, the prices of healthcare have gone up and up and up, but we're getting less and less and less. So even though we're paying more for our deductibles, and then we have co-pays and co-insurance and so forth, we're actually getting less and less care for that. You see me for 5 minutes in the clinic. So I came across this direct primary care model a couple of years ago and started looking into it and realized this is what I want to do because it provides both the accessibility for the patients and affordability. And so basically, I've cut out all the middlemen and it's beautiful. I don't deal with insurance anymore. I don't have to worry about prior authorizations. I just get my patients the care that they need when they need it at affordable prices. Part of the way of doing this is that instead of using insurance, I charge a monthly membership fee. So for most adults, it's around $70 per month, which one of my patients pointed out the other day, that's less than my cup of Starbucks every day. So yes, I'm less than your cup of Starbucks every day. So you pay $70 a month. And then another patient described me as Netflix. So this unfortunate patient, the first time he saw me, he had come in for knee pain. The next week, he cut his finger and came in for stitches. The week after that, he fell off a ladder and had a concussion. And then I've been seeing him weekly. And he's like, and none of that cost him any extra. So for that same $70, there was no, extra fee for each of those visits. There was no add-on cost. So he was like, I'm really getting my money's worth this month, but you're kind of like Netflix. This month I'm going to use you a lot and hopefully next month I don't see you at all. And so kind of like Netflix. In February, I watch a lot of it, but in June, not so much because I'm outside. So
we'll get back to this after, but I have one more question. How do you keep it so cheap? And how do all hospitals and doctors not do this?
That's a really long, involved question.
Okay, why don't we get back to that after the break? We're here with Dr. Wendy Molaska. This is D1 All Stars. Joe Maldonado will be back after this. Welcome back to D1 All Stars. So give me your answer to this long, complicated question. How do you
the short answer is when you cut out insurance and administrators and all the middlemen, you're able to provide care at much lower prices. So the other thing that I found is, I partner directly with various vendors. So for example, I use Quest or LabCorp for my labs. They're nationally known vendors. I'll draw patients' labs here in my office. They have to pay extra for the labs, but again, the price is very reasonable. So for a thyroid test, a TSH, it's $3.85. And one of my patients was like, yeah, the last time I had that done because of my copays and deductibles and coinsurance, it was $113. And so for that one test, she's like, you already saved me the cost of your monthly membership and then some because of that one test. So yeah.
What happens when you have something that's kind of more expensive, like a major kind of medical procedure? What does somebody do at that point?
Yeah, so two things. So number one, so direct primary care, my clinic's called Dedicated Family Care, and it's here in Fitchburg. You have your membership with me, but I'm not insurance. So that's the one thing. So you should have some kind of backup insurance, whether that's a catastrophic plan, a high deductible health plan, if you have insurance through your employer, cost sharing plans like Sedera and Zion, Christian Sharing Ministries. Those will cover you for your big things. You need your gallbladder taken out, and you need a hospitalization, you need a knee replacement. But most things, when you think about it, are done in your primary care office. So you need your annual exam, you need your cholesterol check, you need a pap smear, you need contraception. I can do IUDs. I've done a lot of women's health. So IUDs, Nexplanon, birth control pills, any type of, childcare checkups, sutures, lesion removals. So just about anything. If it's things like x-rays, kind of like the labs, I can directly partner with vendors. So for a x-ray, it's $65 here in the clinic. And other things I have to send out, big things, MRIs, CTs, but again, I can find them for a lot cheaper. So one of my patients quoted me that if they went through one of the big hospitals here, it was going to be about $4,000 for an MRI of their shoulder. I sent them over to Milwaukee. It was a little bit more of a drive, but they were able to get that same MRI for $650. So there's workarounds, and this is just so far outside the box for a lot of people that, most people haven't heard of direct primary care. A lot of people aren't familiar with this model. Some people are like, it's too good to be true. But yeah, the idea is to provide better accessibility. And so my patients get my cell phone, my email, my clinic office number. They can contact me multiple different ways. I do long office visits. So instead of, being told, hey, yeah, you have 15 minutes. We only get to address one thing. I do 30 and 60-minute appointments so we can address the list of things. But yeah, it's kind of concierge medicine for the blue collar worker.
So you probably do a lot more than your average doctor does in terms of the scope or the breadth. Mm-hmm. Do you have people in your office, and what do they do?
Yeah, so I started this as a micro practice, so it was just me. So I was the receptionist and the blood draw person and the nurse and the doctor and the janitor. As of Friday, I am very excited that Ingrid Ortiz is joining my group. She is a registered nurse, and she's also a certified medical interpreter. I've worked with her before, and so since leaving Colorado, my Spanish has gotten rusty. And so Ingrid is fluent in both English and Spanish so that we can continue to serve the Latino community in and around Fitchburg. But yeah, basically the two of us kind of run the show. So we each kind of do a lot of everything.
Awesome. I have so many more questions, but I want to end on, one serious note, which is that, Roe versus Wade was overturned in the Supreme Court, and now in the state of Wisconsin, abortion is illegal. We had one of our council members give a chilling statement on that decision and how it affects her as a woman, and how it affects women, especially women in vulnerable positions economically, medically. Can you talk a little bit about, just from your perspective as a physician, what all of this means for healthcare?
Yeah. So as president of the Wisconsin Medical Society, this became a big deal for us. So I had a press release that we released on Friday when this ruling came out. And then I've been doing other interviews and so forth. The big chilling parts of this is this really impacts that doctor-patient relationship, is that in Wisconsin right now, as a physician, we are concerned about the fact that we cannot provide evidence-based medicine. Abortion is healthcare. It is evidence-based, and there are all kinds of gray areas that politicians just don't understand. in terms of what is actually abortion, what is actually necessary for a woman's health. And because we're reverting to a law in 1849, which was even before germ theory was acknowledged, before doctors washed their hands in between patients, this is chilling. And it impacts potentially other doctor-patient relationships going forward. There are so many gray areas here. It's not just a morality issue. It is actually healthcare and medical safety issue as well.
Can you give me an example of how something might play out under this law that people aren't getting?
So currently, even if a woman has a fetal demise, so the baby dies in utero, current law from 1849 says that unless her life is in danger, she can't have an abortion. An abortion would be getting rid of the dead fetus. So we can't induce her until she becomes sick enough that her life is in danger. Most women, most even fathers of these babies that have died in utero don't want to just try and continue their lives when there's a dead baby, waiting for it to either try and what most people call miscarry, but would be an abortion. The women, a miscarriage is an abortion. So yeah, this is just, really detrimental. And these are the situations that I don't think a lot of people have thought about.
That's scary. So we're gonna link some things in the chat to this, but I just want to thank you so much for your time, Dr. Molaska, and you're here in Fitchburg. Folks can reach you.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us today.